know one of those exporting commodities would be cattle. I'm familiar with that, with the budgetary process. You legislators, the administration's done a good job, getting us in the top of states that are, have their fiscal house in order. It's very tough times, but I commend you, for having us in a good position compared to the other states. But one of the exports would be the cattle. In the past, when the laboratories that you talked about did the testing, and we got more exports, and the money that you appropriated for those labs ran out, then there was no money in order to do the testing, in order to get it out, because the money had been depleted, and there really isn't a rebudgeting process there in order to have those fees go into more lab kits, testing kits. Has that been changed, or is that something that's been looked into?
Another great point. We appropriate approximately $6 million to fund those 3 laboratories. It used to be $6.75 million and 6.5, now $6 million is in the governor's current budget. It's my own personal opinion that we can't go a penny below $6 million. We need to fund laboratory analyses at a very significant level, because if we don't, then we're not going to be picking up on the pending diseases, whether it be livestock and or humans. And if we're not picking them up early, then that's when significant problems emerge within our populations, of which it costs hundreds of fold more to eradicate.
Another area of our food supply that we also have to be concerned with contamination and with different diseases, of course, would be the Chesapeake Bay and the fish, the oysters, the crabs that we eat. You're involved with Chesapeake Bay Commission. Could you tell us what your involvement is, please? And could you tell us what's the status right now of the cleanup of the Chesapeake Bay? Of course, Pennsylvania working together with Maryland and Virginia and Delaware on this.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to talk about that, Charlie, because it's very important. Chesapeake Bay interest started in 1980 with a commitment to reduce nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment by 40% by the year 2000. 10-year goal, failure, 10-year goal, failure. Failure in that the 10-year goal was not achieved. Now we fast forward to just about 1 year ago today. President Obama signed the first ever executive order on the Chesapeake Bay. Now the Chesapeake Bay is not a legislative, the cleanup of the bay is not a legislative initiative. It's a court mandated initiative. That's very important for the viewers to understand. So the Pennsylvania General Assembly or the Congress of the United States did not do this. This is a court mandated action. The federal court is saying we must reduce the toxins going into the bay by a significant amount, and we must do it by the year 2025. And if we don't do that by the year 2025, Pennsylvania will be penalized by the federal government. So toward that end, they formed a Chesapeake Bay Commission. I'm the chairman of the Chesapeake Bay Commission for the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And the next year, I'll be the chairperson of the Tri-State Commission, which is Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Washington, D.C. And we are committed to implementing the court mandated order. We have no option, but we want to do that in a manner in which does not sacrifice jobs. Very important. So we want environmental compliance. I personally believe that we should have a healthy Chesapeake Bay, but I believe there's some right ways and some wrong ways to move forward. So we want to have a continued dialogue with President Obama's EPA administrator, who's Lisa Jackson. It's very important. With our state DEP officials. John Hanger is our Secretary of DEP currently, doing a great job, and and he sits on that commission as well. He's focusing on this. So we're on federal mandates. We in the state have negotiated some level of latitude, flexibility, so that we can get initiatives on the ground that make sense for Pennsylvania.
Well, it's very exciting. We look forward to hearing more about that in the future. Because I'm sorry we're out of time now, but it would be exciting to have you back again to talk about that, because some of the things about the Chesapeake Bay and with the algae plumes and whatever, and the oxygen depletion, we need to talk more about that. Thank you very much.
Actually, in the last 30 seconds, if you had a quick recap of what are the things that we could do to close the budget deficit here in Pennsylvania as we approach the end of the budget season and the the July 1st deadline, which the Rendell administration has never met in 7 years. So this is, will they meet it this year, do you believe? And can you give us a 30-second sort of overview on what you do to fix the budget, Senator? I know I'm putting you in a tight spot.
Toughest question of the day, what's the budget solution in 30 seconds or less? Very difficult, but the governor has proposed a $1.4 billion tax increase. I personally believe that's the wrong way to go. We're in an economic recession, a tough one, and I don't believe this is the time to be raising taxes. We're going to have to trim. And trimming is a politically popular thing to say, but very difficult to do. It's time that members of the General Assembly that are talking that way meet in Harrisburg and meet and develop a strategy on how we can identify cuts inside of state government that adversely affect our population the least. We've got to trim state government. There's no option around it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for being with us, Senator, and we look forward to following up on some of these issues with you in the near future.
My privilege.
Okay. We'll be right back with the second segment of Behind the Headlines right after this.
Behind the Headlines is brought to you as a public service by PAConstructionJobs.com, where you can look for job openings, post a resume, or learn more about a rewarding career in Pennsylvania's highway construction industry. And by the Pennsylvania Business Council, envisioning a commonwealth in which residents enjoy a very high quality of life in sustainable communities. The Council works aggressively to define key long-term policy strategies and solutions that make the Commonwealth more competitive, creating and sustaining a better Pennsylvania. Additional underwriting provided by the Worrell Corporation Foundation, based in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. By Weber Incorporated, a leading manufacturer of hardwood lumber and wood products. The Highway Equipment and Supply Company, Central and Northeast Pennsylvania's authorized distributor for premier construction equipment manufacturers. And the American Home Bank, a nationally chartered and FDIC insured yet locally owned and operated bank in central Pennsylvania. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business. Behind the Headlines is also supported as a public service by Daily Express, transporting construction, farm, and industrial equipment throughout the United States.
Welcome back to the second segment of Behind the Headlines. On this segment, what we'd like to do is talk a little bit about a phenomena that has occurred over the last year, a political phenomena, the Tea Party movement. We find that about a year ago, many congressmen and many U.S. senators were conducting town halls to try to gauge the interest of their constituents in that particular piece of legislation. And as we know, many of the town halls became quite lively. And that particular movement, if you will, those particular town halls seem to spawn what we know of today as the Tea Party movement. One of the liveliest and most notable of those meetings was held in Lebanon, Pennsylvania. And that was a town hall in which U.S. Senator Arlen Specter came to Lebanon and asked his constituents what they thought of the health care bill. And there was one individual who stood out at that particular meeting, and I saw this meeting repeated several times on C-SPAN, and that individual is with us today, and that's Katy Abram. Hi, Katy. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Why, about a year ago, Arlen Specter did come to Lebanon, Pennsylvania, and he held his public meeting, and you were there, and you were quite outspoken during your opportunity to pose a question to the senator. Could you tell us a little bit about your background, what you did before the town hall meeting that Arlen Specter had, and sort of what's happened after?
Sure. I'm actually a stay-at-home mom, and I was before the town hall. For some time, most of my life, I was never really politically involved until I had my daughter in, let me think, it would have been 2002 that she was born, soon after 9/11. And that's when I started to slowly wake up politically after 9/11. Well, over the past couple months, everything that I've seen happen in regards to this administration with originally Cash for Clunkers, the TARP program, a lot of reckless things that I thought were happening, triggered myself and my husband to go to this town hall with Arlen Specter. And of course,